Hello, it's me. I was wondering if you'd like to be on the island with my family. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Striga Sound Podcast. I felt like busting out some Adele. It is I, Jacob Moore, the self-proclaimed sports analyst, and we have the usual suspects today. We have Mr. The One, the Only, everyone's favorite homie, Lane Dash and Dashco. We also have the man, the myth, the legend, the one who doesn't know that there should be a capital M at the beginning of his last name, Mr. More for your money.
Woo! Instagram doesn't use capitals. That's why it's no capital.
Weren't you fancy? And of course, the man who doesn't like social media but loves fantasy sports gaming, the CEO, Mr. Chazzy 6.5, who puts the capital O in CEO. All right, boys, we have an action-packed show today. We're going to go around about the NBA Finals recap. Now, we're not going to take an hour on that because we did a live show on the post game. So make sure you head over to all our social medias, and that show will be there. We're also going to recap the week 3 in the CFL, including some drama with the Toronto Argonauts. Ryan Dimwitty was not very happy. We're going to talk about NHL free agency, and we're going to start off with our top 5 players available. Remember, if you want the TSN top 5 list, go to TSN. No, Dan, don't raise your hand. This is the intro.
No, 5.
Plus, I'm going to go over the CFL power rankings, which, again, they're the analysts' power rankings, not the TSN power rankings. We're going to talk about the Panthers' comments about Connor McDavid, because that's something that I got fired up about. What happened?
Did you see the shirt?
What?
Mark? Did you see the shirt that they had of the Oiler logo?
Dan only likes it when people aren't wearing shirts. And, of course, what happened to the Toronto Blue Jays. But let's get right into that NBA pitching. Whoa, quit your bitching about the pitching. And let's get right into the NBA Finals here. And I got to say, it was heartbreaking to see Halliburton get injured the way he did.
Yeah.
I thought the first half, the Pacers looked locked in. They looked hungry. And then the third quarter, they just completely ran out of gas.
Yep.
I think that is the perfect way to bring this. I think that's basically suffices that whole game. First half, they were locked in, trying to win it for Tyrese. I think they did everything they could. I think they played the best basketball that team could play with the players they had. And unfortunately, with the injury, I thought McCollum had a great game, but it just wasn't enough.
Yeah, and that's...
I mean,
the third quarter, they just completely took over. Okay,
I gotta give Halliburton so much respect. At the end of the game after they lost, he was in the hallway on his crutches, graduating his teammates. I mean, that's a true leader right there. Wow. I mean, I can't name another superstar that would have done that. So good on you, bud.
Speaking of that, I brought this up during the post-game show, and I want to see Chazzy's reaction to this because I think he's going to be very flustered with me. When Connor McDavid lost, he just went by himself and moped. When Tyrese Halliburton lost, in excruciating pain, went to go talk to his teammates. That's the difference between true leadership.
What are you talking about this year?
This year, Connor McDavid this year just sat on the bench staring at the ceiling when they lost.
Oh, it was absolutely devastating.
I don't care. You're the captain. You're the captain. Tyrese Halliburton, as the captain, who got injured in this game, injured in this series, still was there for his teammates. The only one who was there for Stuart Skinner was Calvin Pickard. And again, that is the captain's job.
I have a question for Lane, because Lane says I can ask him any question.
I'm ready to hit the mute button.
Do basketball players have captaincies?
Yes and no.
Oh.
That's if I can. They don't wear a C, but there's obviously a guy that kind of leads the team. Like you can argue, like LeBron is the captain of the Lakers, right?
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
They don't really say he is, but there's always a guy that the team kind of it's mostly just a big guy, the big star on the team, but maybe the odd time. But they don't really have they don't really wear a C, but there is someone who sort of takes the blame and the fall depending on who wins or not. Like obviously Luka Doncic was the sort of the captain of the Mavericks, and right now you could argue Jason Tatum is the captain of the Boston Celtics. So it just kind of goes based off the team, but they don't really have a set captain.
It's kind of like Bo Pete back in the Raptors.
Yeah.
Not really. That was more the Vince Carter era, but
Okay.
I mean, at the end of the day, the Pacers, I think if Halliburton doesn't get injured, you might win this game. You might not. You'll never know.
What I said.
You did say that, Lane. I took the words right out of your mouth and put them in my mouth. But we also talked about turnovers in the pregame, and that was something. Doesn't matter who was in. The Pacers just turned the ball over way too much.
Way too much.
The defense of the OKC was elite tonight. They were right on that with the steals. Dort, even though didn't shoot well, just made some really key steals there, especially in that third quarter, man. They were just, that defense was just clamping down. And I said this on the post game if you want to go check it out on the more detailed version. But again, I think that when you focus on a team version instead of a superstar version, when your best player goes out, you don't have that next, you do have the next guy up. Their bench players did do enough, but they don't have that other superstar that can take the load of what Halliburton brought to that team to help them out in that situation. And you saw the bench did step up. They did as much as they could, but they're playing more. But those guys are playing more minutes than they ever expected to play in the game. Those guys maybe played 10 minutes at most, maybe 15, maybe. And here they are playing like 20, 25. Some of these guys were playing like 28 minutes. So these are a lot more minutes than those guys are expected to play. And like as Jacob said, you kind of saw the fatigue set in right in that third quarter where it just felt like they had it at the beginning, but they couldn't do it anymore.
Now, the surprising thing for me, though, was the way OKC couldn't shoot the three to save their life, 11 for 40 from three. And usually, and so actually, I didn't bring this up in the post-game show, but I'm going to bring this up now. OKC couldn't shoot the three to save their lives. However, they dominated in the paint, 40 points versus the Pacers, 26 points in the paint. Will we see a shift that way? Are we going to see teams going back to the paint, getting offensive rebounds? And you know what, driving hard to the hoop, getting fouls, and creating more points that way, right? You also had the
more exciting.
You also saw the Pacers give up 32 points on turnovers versus the Thunder only giving up 10.
That was crazy.
Those are your stats there that lost you the game: the paint and the turnover. So that's what I'm wondering: will we see a shift in the NBA? Because I know we talked about in the post game. Will we see a shift of teams looking to build an all-around team over just superstars because of the way that what the Pacers have done this year? But will you see a shift in teams looking for more guys in the paint? I thought Chet was one of the biggest reasons why
he was huge tonight.
The OKC, the Thunder won this game. Yeah, obviously SGA was the best all-around player going 8. Mind you, he didn't shoot very well. 8 for 27, but he did put up 12 assists and 29 points while going 11 for 12 at the line. He laid it on the line, boys. But
like I said in the pregame show, postgame show. So like, imagine you had a football game with 23 turnovers, it would be crazy.
Luke Wilson would get even more angry than he was about watching football with 3 downs instead of 4. What? That's a long story. Just basically some comments Luke Wilson put out after the Argo Rough Rider game. I haven't actually seen the clip, but I was reading some of the clips, and yeah, I don't understand why they have him covering CFL if he doesn't like or completely understand it. But that's a whole other thing that we'll get into another day. But yeah, I do think that the Thunder deserve this win. However, I do think the Thunder will want to clean things up moving forward into next season, because I don't know if you're winning a lot of these games only going 11 for 40 from the 3. Unless maybe, though, like I said, maybe this is the new shift that points in the paint are going to matter more because they are easier buckets.
Then we'll start seeing next season if OK City is a dynasty. Like
it's enough of not every team that wins one is a dynasty.
I'm not saying that. If they win the second one,
no,
they're having a conversation.
No, you don't.
I did hear a new word tonight. I think Shay said it. Special. This team is special.
I agree with that.
Ooh,
yeah, they're special.
So if you win 1, you're special.
If you win 2, you're dominant. If you win 3, you're a dynasty.
There you go.
I'm going to do this now. Anything's possible!
Which did happen last year. We argued with Dan for 20 minutes. It did originally happen in 08. So we were both right.
Remember that, Chazzy?
But at the end of the day, congratulations to the Oklahoma Thunder. Big win for you boys.
That's
You are
huge.
now NBA championships in 7 games. I think it was a big positive for the NBA. This series was close and went 7 because if memory serves me right, the last few NBA finals have been a dud. This was anything but a dud. This was exciting.
The
This is
good
probably
thing,
one of the most exciting NBA finals I've watched. 2 very good teams going head to head.
and the good thing is there's mid markets, right? These aren't the big markets. Like
Right,
this
that
isn't the
too.
Boston Celtics. This isn't the Cleveland Cavaliers. This isn't the Golden State Warriors. These were 2 teams that probably were not supposed to be here, and you could argue, especially Indiana, a team that wasn't really meant to be here. You're not looking at the big markets that bring in the big dollars. These are mid-tier markets that don't have all the luxury tax. They're not the Lakers. They're not the other team, but here they are. They're in the final. I think this is a great NBA Finals because it shows that really, like Dan said, anything is possible.
Well, exactly. And I think it's great too. Like, it's the first time KC has ever won a championship. It's the first time it's only first time in 9 times that it went to 7 games. I mean, it's the first Indiana hasn't won a championship in 40 years. If they made it to the finals, want to give huge shout out to our Canadian Shay. This is great for Canadian basketball that never Canadian won and never finals. It's like we talk about Canada and the Olympics and all that.
Second time in 3 years.
Probably?
Second time in 3 years.
That's
Well,
what I
I think
mean.
there's
Right?
4 Canadians in the game.
Basketball,
Yeah,
local
4
Hamilton
Canadians in the
boy.
game too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
MVP,
crazy.
like, great overall
each
for
team.
everyone.
And wasn't Jamal Murray one of he was outstanding in that playoff run 2 years ago too. So I mean, we are seeing a change of the guard in basketball, and I think too, Shea Alexander is now, at least for now, he's proven that he could be the new face of the league.
Yep.
Yeah.
That he is a guy that is able to be that new face when players like LeBron James and Steph Curry, unfortunately, they are aging and they're getting old. The NBA needs a new face of the league, and I think Anthony Edwards, until he goes on, he's better than Michael Jordan. He's got to go win it. He's got to at least get to the NBA Finals. And I think Shea Alexander just put Canada on the map, saying, no, the best player in the NBA is Canadian. Because right now he proved he's the best player in the NBA. Because at the end of the day, who got it done?
Yeah.
Shea Alexander. When even in a game where I would say his shot was off, he found a way to win the game by then expanding his passing ability, getting 12 assists in a playoff game.
Yeah, he still got a double-double.
And
again, Chet too, with all those blocks. Like, man, they just dominated the paint.
It was his game tonight.
And offensively. And I think we may see a change in the NBA of more teams going back to less of just chucking up threes every 5 seconds, because now Steph Curry isn't the best player in the league anymore.
That's right.
Right? If the best player is a guy like Shea, who is a dual threat on a guy that will drive to the hoop and can hit threes. Normally, he couldn't hit threes tonight to save his life, but normally he can. I think we're going to see more of like the Vince Carter, DeMar DeRozan style players back, where we're going to see some mid-range shots again. We're going to see driving to the hoop. We saw some of the nicest layups I've seen in years in last night.
Yeah, we did.
So I want to say congratulations to the NBA, because you had a very exciting NBA Finals. And if you want more on this game, I just hit my phone off the desk. It's fine. Make sure that you go over to Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch and check out our post-game show. Chazzy was not there. Well, he was there at the end because I put in a video.
But did you notice sort of like with the NHL champion Florida Panthers and now the OKC NBA champion, sort of that theme, and sort of when you see the celebration, it's that selfishness. Look at Florida with the first guys winning the cup. Just the respect and the family, even from the ownership group and the GM. Like it was almost like what is Moneyball, or just the relation? Oh no, it was Jerry Maguire. That relationship between ownership and team, and how they're able to celebrate. And even tonight, seeing that with OKC, and I think the ownership, still the original ownership that brought them from Seattle. So they really like, and then they groomed, like that's like homegrown professional talent. So that just common theme of what we saw between both those champions this year. So,
which is awesome to see, right? And you're also seeing it isn't necessarily the team that brings in the most superstars that's winning the championship. You look at the Lakers when they brought in, they brought in their big piece. Everyone thought, oh, this team's going to go the distance, and they got booted out in the first round. So maybe we are seeing a change of the guard. An area we're not seeing a change in the guard currently is the Canadian Football League. And week 3 of the Canadian Football League is just passed. And I'll be honest with you boys, we had some surprises in this one. I'll quickly go over. I'm going to go over the scores, then my power rankings. Then we'll break each game down. I do want your opinions, though, if you guys agree or disagree on my power rankings. So we had the Winnipeg Blue Bombers beat the BC Lions 27-14. Rough Riders squeak out a very, very close game between the Toronto Argos, 39-32, off a game-winning kickoff touchdown return by Mero Alford.
How devastated were you guys?
Oh my God, it was heartbreaking.
Yeah.
The Ottawa Red Blacks surprisingly beat the Calgary Stampeders 20-12, and the Montreal Alouettes did beat the Edmonton Elks 38-28, but I don't think they like how close this game got. Because that game could have been a blowout, and the Elks climbed right back in.
And Hamilton did nothing.
Apparently they dropped. Now they're last.
So here's my rankings. I'm sorry, Lane. I'm not doing this. I'm not doing it to be mean. I have the Montreal Alouettes sitting at first. They're the best team in the CFL right now.
They are.
The Saskatchewan Roughriders. I had a tough time picking between the Roughriders and the Blue Bombers for second, but I picked the Roughriders, and I'll explain why in a minute. Then we had the Winnipeg Blue Bombers down to at third, Ottawa Red Blacks, and for me, move up to fourth, jumping the Calgary Stampeders and the BC Lions. They jumped 2 positions. Calgary Stampeders at fifth, BC Lions at sixth. Argos and Elks, I kept flipping these two teams back and forth. I put the Argos ahead of the Elks because it was a closer game, and in my opinion, they both equally faced comparable opponents. Elks faced Montreal, Argos faced the Rough Riders. And honestly, Tiger Cats just kind of slipped to last because I didn't feel comfortable putting Toronto or Edmonton at last with the way they played this week. Both of them really fighting against teams that they probably should have got the doors blown off of them by. And Hamilton, I'm still in that spot because you are 0-2 with a healthy lineup versus the Toronto Argos are 0-3 with an unhealthy lineup. And the Edmonton Elks kind of lost a game that they were expected to lose and made the game a hell of a lot closer than it should have been. Again, Hamilton could jump if they win their next game, right? Obviously. So, what do you guys feel about my power rankings? I'm curious if you guys have questions about my top 3.
I think top. Oh, what's your question?
No, go.
Okay, I think the top 3 are correct. I just think. I don't know why. My gut's telling me Winnipeg shouldn't be third. I get Montreal, Saskatchewan got the best record, but Winnipeg did have the bye week in the first, and Winnipeg has kind of dominated both games. Now, both those games were against BC, our weak opponents. So maybe that's your theory, Jacob?
So my theory is you beat the same team twice.
Yeah. So
okay. Montreal has had to beat 3 different teams. And
I was
so
thinking out loud as I was saying that.
So that's kind of my thought process there. Also, too, I will get into it more when we break down that game. There are some legitimate concerns for me with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers right now, even though they're 2-0. I have some legitimate concerns about the way that team is playing.
Now, Chaz, you had a question there, too.
What's up, Chazinator?
Oh, I guess one's for you and one's for Lane. Going into this week's game with Montreal Hamilton, do your rankings change? Because now you got Montreal. I guess my first question is, how important is the bye week, coming off the bye week for Hamilton? But then second, you have Montreal that went from east to west. Now you're going in and playing Hamilton, which I'm assuming coming off a bye, you're hungry, you're 0-2. And, like, what do you guys think going with that sort of analogy or hype going into that?
I'm going to say this. If Hamilton beats Montreal, I could jump them as much as 4 spots in the power rankings right up to mid-pack of Calgary.
Wow.
If they
how far would you take Montreal down knowing that that's a tough travel schedule, huh?
That's no excuse. To me, the travel is no excuse when you are Montreal right now is the Grey Cup. I believe is the Grey Cup favorite coming out of the East, considering the other teams are under 500 in the East. And Montreal should be able to beat Hamilton, no problem. No offense, Lane. Just
No,
like
I know.
Montreal should be able to beat Toronto, no problem. And well, they did, right? So for me, if Hamilton can make it a game, that's why Edmonton and Toronto for me weren't dead last, because they faced the two best teams in the league and were very competitive.
Yeah.
But Lane, how are you feeling about that there? Do you think Hamilton may be able to pick up against a tired Montreal group?
Yeah, hopefully it's a bit of a reset, right? Like, it's been a rough 2 games, and already it seems like that Ticats season isn't going the way it's planned, even though they bred in Kenny Lawler here. And it just seems like it's already going off to a bad start with Milovanovic and Bo Levi Mitchell here, and just them arguing here, and Taylor Powell sitting on the sideline, maybe looking to get in sooner than expected here. But I'm hoping the Ticats can snap out of this and not go down on 5. Like, I don't understand. They were like, I know they had a 0-5, but they were not bad in those 5 games. But then they were the best second half team. It was just too late. But, maybe a week off to reset, go back to the drawing board, figure out what's not working, try to figure out how it'll work. You had a week off. Montreal's going east, west, west, east. Like you said, Chazzy, they're flying all over the country here, back and forth here. So hopefully, Hamilton can kind of get that reset, take a break, get back in it, and try to get back on track here without falling too far behind again.
Also, too, I think the big advantage for Hamilton, which is the exact same advantage for Toronto and the exact advantage for Ottawa. Last year, Montreal ran away with the East, but then there was also like Toronto, who was playing really well. And you had Ottawa, who was playing at a really high level. So Hamilton, it was out of reach for them because of how well Toronto and Ottawa were playing, and Montreal. Besides in Montreal, yeah, Ottawa won their first game. That was a bizarre game that they found a way to win. And you have Toronto, who, as much as they pushed Saskatchewan to the brink, they're 0-3. So for Hamilton, you still feel the season's in reach 100%.
So even with Ottawa only throwing for just over 100 yards,
99 yards.
I guess your ground game just took over. Is that
Dan Anababoye had his best rushing game of his CFL career with over 100 yards. And he just really, honestly, Dan Anababoye showed exactly why the Ottawa Red Blacks brought him in, and exactly why I was actually more upset about Dan Anababoye being gone than Kadeem Carey. I have so much faith in Dan Anababoye for the future.
Holy cow.
I think this guy's a hell of a back. Plus, he can play on special teams. Yeah, the running game for the Ottawa Red Blacks is just huge.
So are we concerned as Stampeders that front line, anyone's going to run over that defense?
Well, and the interesting thing is the Calgary Stampeders went out and brought in Flo Armalahe, right, who was really supposed to fix that issue. And I don't think Calgary's front has really looked that great, because you look at Ottawa's running game. So Dan Anababoye, he had 96 yards on 10 carries. William Stanback had 82 yards on 9 carries. Dustin Crum, the quarterback, had 64 yards on 11 carries.
Oh.
So you look at that. Sure, Dustin Crum only went 9 for 22, 101 yards and a touchdown.
Need to, I guess.
But he didn't really need to. And that's why I kept saying I don't know why Dustin Crum wasn't starting over Matthew Schultz, because he can do things that Matthew Schultz can't with his legs. Right? No, if I'm Calgary, and actually, since we're already talking about this game, why don't we break this game down first, actually, from week 3 between the Calgary Stampeders and the Ottawa Red Blacks. If I'm Calgary, I am concerned about VA struggles a bit. I mean, I've seen people go on that VA came out of the gate very slow. I disagree with that personally. He won the first 2 games, and he had no passing touchdowns. But overall, I felt he was playing at a high level. This game, he went 17 for 32, 218 yards and an interception. My concern is, without Reggie Bangleton, he doesn't really have anyone to throw the ball to. Right? Like, Dominic Rhymes had a big game, and Clark Burns was pretty good. But after that, Tevin Jones and Jalen Philpott, they're not top tier wide receivers.
Philpott's half decent, isn't he?
His brother, Tyson Philpott, could be one of the best receivers in the league. Jalen Philpott's okay, but he's a great 3rd to 4th option. You don't want him as your number 2, which he is right now. I think the Calgary Stampeders need to go out and bring in Alexander Hollins, who's just sitting at home twiddling his thumbs.
Yeah, Juki Manoidas.
And bring in someone that can make a big difference. But, Craig, to bring in your point, I don't feel the defensive line is really looked anything great. You only had one sack on Crum, which was Hutchins. It's not enough. I think Calgary's got to find a way to get that defensive line going. I think you need to blitz more if you're the Calgary Stampeders. So, but my question for you, Chazzy, it kind of was an odd game, but how concerned are you about the offense kind of looking flat?
Oh, I think it's just one of those games, and I don't know, like back to the point, travel. These guys went from east to west, and how much does that affect these games, especially? Yeah, well, you could be playing like look at this week. I think they're playing again on a Friday, so it doesn't give you
Calgary is off this week, actually, which I think will be good for Calgary.
But I guess so. No, so but with Montreal, like now you're going to play Hamilton. Like these teams aren't, especially out of the gate. You don't want to go 0. What are they on 0-2 right now?
Yeah, Hamilton does not want to go 0-3, especially since Ottawa got their first win. I think it's a good chance Ottawa could beat. I think Toronto could beat Ottawa on Sunday in Ottawa. Toronto is the favorite going into that one right now. But if I'm the Calgary Stampeders, weirdly enough, I've seen a lot of panic. I wouldn't be panicked at all. Vernon Adams Jr. is a very high-end quarterback who has made your offense a lot more explosive. Yeah, and we even saw glimpses of it that game. And truthfully, he should have had a couple touchdown passes that were just dropped because the ball was soaked. It was raining very, very, very hard in this game.
It was crazy, bro. It was.
This Barnes caught a couple deep ones.
He did, right? I still think they need more. But hopefully either Reggie Bangleton's leg injury, knee injury heals a lot faster than anyone thinks it does, or maybe they bring in another wide receiver.
As one of our Carmats said on a live show, Dickinson was scared of Dwayne. Like it was a really bad out.
And actually, I don't know why they abandoned the run as early as they did in a game. That's why is Vernon Adams Jr. dropping back 36, 37 times to pass. I get the CFL is a passing league, and I do understand that. But Dedrick Mills was actually running the ball pretty well. And let's be honest, Ottawa's defense is so-so. You can probably run the ball more than you did and have success.
Especially a bad weather game, you think that's when you want your one game to shine. It's usually like we have all the Grey Cup didn't snow and stuff. Right? It was all the one game in all those games, you know?
Now, being a bigger football, how hard is it in the rain compared to like an NFL?
Very. It's harder. It's straight up harder. Because that football is bigger. So
what, are you getting more flutters? Like just
yeah.
You can't deflate like Tom Brady does, you know?
No, you can't deflate your balls like Tom Brady. Now, my other question is, and I want to move on now to the Blue Bombers versus the BC Lions, which, yes, the Blue Bombers won 27-14, but I mean, it's kind of to be expected. I was not impressed with Zach Collaros whatsoever this game. I thought Collaros, I was underthrowing receivers constantly. I actually think if BC's defense was a little bit better, this game could have been very different. Well, Jeremiah Masoli kind of did what you kind of expected. He didn't play great, but I mean, for a backup quarterback who hadn't started a game in like almost 300 days, it was kind of to be expected. But Zach Collaros went 18 for 25, 179 yards, 2 touchdowns with 2 interceptions.
You were right about being under 200, Jacob. I got to give you credit. You said he wouldn't hit.
No, I didn't think he would. And he didn't look good. He was underthrowing receivers. He was missing reads. Both picks were bad throws. I am legitimately concerned with Zach Collaros right now because people are like, oh, look at this. He's back in form. He's DMO. It's like if that was Nick Arbuckle who put up those numbers, everyone would be like, oh, Nick Arbuckle sucks. This is why the Argos are where they are this year. But Zach Collaros, I personally thought had an off night. And a lot of people are criticizing Jeremiah Masoli. I want to read you his stat line here. 25 for 44, 281 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 picks. They're comparable stat lines. The difference is Winnipeg has a way better defense, and we're just not letting BC put points on the board.
Well, is that secondary as good, though, on the Bombers?
Pardon?
Is the secondary as good?
Oh, my God. The secondary on Winnipeg is stacked. Winnipeg wins and loses by their defense, and especially their defensive line. Willie Jefferson's a dog on a bone. And I mean, Holm had a huge game again. And you look at Winnipeg, this team is built around defense. I'm just concerned Brady Oliveira is going to be out long term. Running the ball with Matthew Peters 11 carries, 42 yards, average 3.8 yards per carry. It's okay. It's not Brady Oliveira numbers though. And Zach Collaros, I would say, struggled in this game. He did enough. And that's all that matters. Your goal is to go 1-0 every week. But I felt Zach Collaros really struggled in this game. And these are prime conditions. You're indoors, good artificial turf, no wind against a weak secondary in BC, and you still manage to struggle. So I'm a little concerned if I'm Winnipeg with Zach Collaros.
Speaking of drama in week 3 and Willie Jefferson, Jacob pointed something out interesting when we were watching the game. There's a possibility next week we could hear a suspension coming for Willie Jefferson.
Jefferson and one of the players from the BC Lions, which his name is escaping me, but both of them got a 15-yard misconduct foul flag within the last 2 minutes of a game, which means both of those plays will be reviewed by the Canadian Football League. And the bigger issue is Willie Jefferson was kicked out of the game because he had 2 of those penalties.
That's
which
right.
If you get 2 of those obstructionary conduct in a CFL game, you get a game misconduct. Now, again, being towards the end of the fourth quarter, could we see Willie Jefferson facing a 1-game suspension? Do I think it will be? Honestly, no. But it is something that the CFL is going to look at. So that's something to keep your eyes open for, to see if we do see some suspensions, whether it's on BC or Winnipeg. But I'm curious about you guys here. Could you guys see the BC Lions dropping even further? Like, I get they're 1-2, but they beat Edmonton. And I remember that was a tie game going into the second half. And they did not look good either game against Winnipeg. They did not look good.
Looks like it'd be a tough season for the BC Lions, I gotta be honest.
Well, they got the Rough Riders this weekend.
Which that's gonna be a tough game for BC.
Oh yeah.
Because it is so hard to play in Saskatchewan. It's such a loud building. And we've also seen Nathan Rourke struggle with loudness straight up in his career. I'm assuming Nathan Rourke will start that game. I personally think Rourke probably could have played this game. I think they just aired on the side of caution.
Yeah, probably.
One quick note to throw back to the Calgary Stampeders, I forgot to mention, they did just sign Adam Bighill, which is a big move, I think, to try to help their middle linebacker group to try to make this team a little bit bigger.
That's huge.
That'll help.
So I think that will help this defensive core with the Calgary Stampeders, just to give it a little bit more of an aggressiveness and also just some leadership. He's on the practice squad for now as he gets back into game form, but we will see Adam Bighill making back to the group. Now, I want to move on now to the Toronto Argos versus the Saskatchewan Roughriders. So most people would think you have the Toronto Argos, who are towards the bottom of the league. You have the Roughriders towards top of the league. And this game finished 39-32 for the Roughriders. So you'd think your coach might be, overall okay with this game. Not whatsoever.
No.
I want to read you some of Ryan Dinwiddie's comments. And let's kind of go over these comments here. And Ryan Dinwiddie's quotes to the media. I've never really got after those guys. This is the first time I've ever had to after a game. Pretty embarrassed by it. I thought it was selfish play, selfish penalties. I told those guys, someone's going home tomorrow. Heads are rolling. I ain't putting up with that stuff no more. That is Ryan Dinwiddie is normally calm as a cucumber. This is the first time as his head coach in his career that he has gone 0-3 to start a year. The first time he's had a 3-game losing streak as the head coach of the Toronto Argonauts.
Well, this is what I was saying too. Like, if you look at the Argos versus something like the Leafs, all different teams. Like, you look at winning culture, right? And it's like, imagine if Craig Berube had a comment like that for Maple Leafs, how crazy the world would go. Like, I give Dinwiddie a lot of credit for. I don't know if I totally agree with him. I think the Argos, I think the Argos did try. I think the fact they took so many penalties, they tried a little too hard. I think they just got the emotions got better of them. But the fact that he said it 100% is like amazing. That's why I talk about the winning culture, right? This is what the Maple Leafs are missing and some other teams. What Dinwiddie also says, he would rather have guys with good attitude than talent. And imagine if the Maple Leafs were like that, how good they would be.
Also,
Just
to bring into your point, Dan, out of those 129 yards of penalties, over 70 yards were non-football flags. So meaning
Well,
after the play was done. That is what he means by no more selfish plays. Like that is completely unacceptable. And the Rough Riders coach Corey Mace, I don't have the exact quote, he wasn't happy either. They took 178 yards in penalties.
Wow.
With almost 100 of them being non-football flags. And Ryan Dinwiddie did continue to say, like, look, he gets flags will happen, and he doesn't mind so much when they are legitimate football plays. Also, too, your special teams on that final kick return, 11 players on the field. This isn't the NFL. You need 12. And the CFO did miss a block from behind on the game-winning return and a face mask penalty on the Argos' final play of the game. It's tough. Those are non-reviewable plays. It's tough to even blame the officials. It is a lot of football to watch at once. I get it. Ryan Dinwiddie was to be blunt, he was just very pissed. And he was also very frustrated because he said the defense for Toronto, and I do agree with this 1,000%, just could never get a stop. Like every time Nick Arbuckle would lead the offense out there and put together a drive, I think this was Nick Arbuckle's best game of the year. I thought the Argos offense was the best they have played all season.
For sure.
They would just let Saskatchewan go out there and put together another drive. AJ Ouellette was just running, literally not even running around them. He was just bulldozering that entire Argos group. Now, mind you, having 8 injuries is part of the problem, but Ryan Dinwiddie said that's no excuse.
Wow.
This is a winnable football game that you just didn't win. But
So
Lane, sorry, Chazzy, go ahead.
No, I'm just going to say, so you being there and you seeing the Rough Riders, is this the reason why you don't have them in number 1? Over Montreal?
Yes, because I also think that truthfully, I think Saskatchewan could have easily lost this game. Like Trevor Harris struggled. Now Trevor Harris has thrown interceptions in all 3 games to start the year, which is not Trevor Harris like. And you let this Argo offense play very well. Nick Arbuckle the Toronto Argos were down 10 points going into the 4th quarter, and they found a way to storm back with a really big comeback. And at the end of the day, it came down to a Superman play by Mario Alford and the Toronto Argos not having enough players on the field. But to my point, Trevor Harris went 13 for 17, 234, 2 touchdowns and a pick. Longest play was a 70-yard play, which is one of the defensive plays that drove Ryan Dinwiddie nuts, with Myers catching one off a slant route and then just going for 70 yards on a play that should have been maybe a 15-yard gain at the most. You also had Tommy Stevens as a short yardage quarterback, average 5 yards a carry. That can't happen either. I mean, this guy's the best short yardage quarterback in the CFL, and it showed, putting up 19 yards on just 6 carries, including a touchdown. AJ Ouellette, also a long carry of 25 yards, 17 carries, 91 yards. Right, so the Argos defense did struggle. They just couldn't get off the field. Yeah, they did get the 1 interception, which was huge. But I think the reason why Ryan Dinwiddie was so irritated in this game, you have Nick Arbuckle going 26 for 33, 259, a touchdown and a pick. Even his 1 interception wasn't a terrible read. It was just a great play. You had the running game was better. I mean, you had Williams, 7 carries, 37 yards, averaging 5.3 yards a carry. You did see Kevin Brown being used, not really in the running game, mostly being used for a blocking scheme, and he did his job. Kevin Mattal had one of his best games of his CFO career, putting up 98 yards and a touchdown on 8 targets, 7 receptions. Dejan Brissett with 53 yards, Dominic Coxey with 51 yards. Like, the offense really looked alive for Toronto. I feel Toronto, Ryan Dinwiddie feels that this game got away from them, and I'll be honest, I feel this game got away from them. We should have at least got this to overtime. That what happened there was just unacceptable, and it was so deflating to the fans in BMO Field. As much as people may criticize Argo Nation for their lack of attendance at their games, the fans who are there are extremely passionate, and the energy was just gone.
Well, that's the thing. It's like, regardless what you think of the outcome of the game, that was an ultimate CFL game.
Oh, it was exciting.
To have it tied up and then all lost within the last 30 seconds. I mean, that was just crazy.
And again, I just feel like also do big shots out to Liam Hamalahu, who connected on the longest Argo field goal since 2022 with a 56-yard field goal in that game. Also against 56 yards against the wind. So that's impressive, right? That's a very That's a very difficult kick.
Like, is that a dead on win at the what is it, BMO?
No, the wind's crazy in BMO because you're literally right at the lake. There's times it's left to right. There's times it's north south.
Okay, so it's swirling.
It's a very tough wind to kick into, and again, I think that's the thing for Toronto. A lot of things went right. If the special teams and defense plays a better game, you probably win this game. Yeah. The defense just looked deflated at times. Cameron Judge dropped 2 interceptions that he probably should have had. So that's the thing. Trevor Harris could have been picked off 3 times this game, right? He's picked off 3 times this game. Argos at least put up field goals in those. We're singing a different tune. The Argos probably win. You also have Lothar missing a field goal again, which then gives Nick Arbuckle the chance to put together a drive and a 2-point convert that he gets. So no, I think Toronto can build on this game. Don't get me wrong. I am very curious to see if by the time this episode's up, or maybe by later in Monday or Tuesday, if potentially someone is cut from the Toronto Argos.
Yeah, I think it could happen. The problem is, who do you bring in? I don't know. But it's like the fact that he said it the way he said it, Dimwitty's been our coach the past 3 seasons. I've never seen him that upset before, right? And you look at it like, oh, that was a close game. Oh, you could have won this or whatever. But it doesn't matter how close the games are. You're playing against you are 0-3, and now you're 3 games behind for the whole year, right? So,
and I mean, Chad, and also I've seen everywhere everyone's blaming the injury for Chad Kelly. Nick Arbuckle was not the reason why you lost this game. If anything, he was the reason why you had a shot in this game. Nick Arbuckle played great. But Lane, you wrote on the script, Lane mystery question, and I've been dying to know what this mystery question is.
So as many of you know, and I'm sure people listening to the podcast, I am a very passionate sports fan, so maybe I'm reading too much into this. But I know if my team did this, and if the Ticats did this, I would be coming on here screaming, yelling. Chazzy would have his popcorn. He'd be eating it. He'd be laughing at me. So I want to see if the Moore brothers are on my level. Maybe they're not because they're just so massive Argo fans. Maybe they don't get upset. But I want to know something truthfully, honestly. You guys were 0-2 coming into this game. And, I'm reading what the coach is saying. He's blaming the team. It's my team. And But here's the funny thing about that. And I actually watched the last quarter of this game. And on the commentary, in the last 30 seconds, what did they say? And this is not the coach. This is not the GM. This is the commentator saying, hey, the Argos just tied this game up. You know what they shouldn't do? Kick the ball to Mario Alford. That would be the biggest mistake they could ever do. They should kick it out of bounds and get it to overtime. And what did they do? They kicked the ball to Mario Alford and all the way down the field to the end zone to lose the game 0-3. I'm telling you, if that was the Ticats, I would never watch this team again. I would watch Scott Millivan fired. I don't care about Bowling by Mitchell. He can go work at the bowling alley. That is unplorable. You won the Grey Cup, and you're telling me you're going to go blame the team? You should blame yourself. You want to go home? You should go home. You go home. You're a coach. The flipping commentator knew what to do. You're the coach. Go up.
The commentator knew what to do.
So,
come on.
I will say here, that was a decision
we were. And I'm bad.
No, but we were talking about this in the stands, funny enough. So there was 23 seconds left. If you don't kick it to Alford and you kick it out of bounds, you're starting at the 45-yard line. That means you need 3 first downs in 23 seconds to get it in field goal range.
Not a good defense, and you guys have a good defense.
The defense was playing terrible that entire night. Trevor Harris is arguably a top-tier quarterback in the CFL. Okay, let me preface it by this. I wouldn't have kicked it to Mario Alford, but I understand why they did, because they had been containing Alford all night.
True.
That was Alford's first explosive kick return the entire game. The special teams were actually containing it. And they decided to go with what they did. The other reason why I'm not flipping out the way you would, Lane, as a Ticats fan or as a Leaf fan, and I don't mean this as any disrespect, the Leafs haven't won since the 60s. The Ticats haven't won since the 90s. The Argos have won twice in 3 years, 4 and 7.
I know, but
you're going to go through rough patches as a team. Look, Winnipeg Blue Bombers started 2-6 last year, and then they went all the way to the Grey Cup. I actually like the way Ryan Dinwiddie was calling out his players. I like that fact. Also, too, that's actually not on the head coach about kicking it to Mario Alford. That's your special teams coordinator.
Still,
the way the Argos run, they let their coaches, their coordinators run their areas. Ryan Dinwiddie runs the offense, and he's the head coach. But his main is the offense and head coach. So in practice and preparation and all those things, but game time decisions, you usually leave it to your coordinators. Maybe Ryan Dinwiddie should have stepped in and said, hey, you know what? No, I don't want to kick it to Mario Alford here. I don't know. It's hindsight's 2020, right? It's one of those decisions. If let's say you don't kick it to Mario Alford, they get it at the 45 or the 50-yard line. Trevor Harris bombs 2 big throws. They get a chip shot at the 30. All Arthur has to do is get a rouge, and the game is done. Right? Like, and if people may complain about the rouge, I say if you complain about the rouge, get a life. It's a Canadian football rule. That's like when people complain about offside in the NHL. It's a rule. If you don't understand it, get a book. And at the end of the day,
with a rouge, how many games would end?
Say that again, Chazzy.
How many games would end on a rouge?
We saw 2 or 3 end on them last year, actually, including a game in overtime. But at the end of the day, it's a Canadian football rule. And Lane, I get why you're passionate.
Like, I'm not even the Argos, and I'm mad. I'm just like,
I know.
You know what? It doesn't make sense to me. Like, how can the commentator sit there? It was like blowing my mind. I'm sitting there watching the game, and the commentator says, you should absolutely not do this. And then I'm like, and they just did it. And I guess maybe you're counting on your kick return to make a play there. I'm not saying that doesn't happen, but they literally said Mario Alford's known to run the ball back pretty aggressively and get tons of yards.
But he had a bad game all game, and to be honest, Mario Alford was bad last season too. It's truthfully the decision I was more angry about was on 3rd and 1, not putting out your short yardage quarterback when you could have got a touchdown early in the game and you left Arbuckle out there and then you handed it to Kevin Brown. You never do that in the CFL 3rd and 1 in the red, trying to get into the end zone. You have short yardage quarterbacks for that reason, and that is what you do. That was the decision I was more angry about, and I was just frustrated with the amount of lackluster penalties. However, I still think the Argos have a lot to build off this game. You build off this offense. You do have Chatfield Jr., who has 4 sacks this year on your defensive line. In the second half, they were actually starting to finally contain the run game. Hopefully, Winton McManus's injury isn't too long. If it is, there's going to be trouble in your linebacking core.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I think the Argos could build on this. And I think if you're the Rough Riders, you're very concerned that you let a Toronto Argo offense led by Nick Arbuckle put 32 points up against you. With Nick Arbuckle running it and Janarian Grant not getting you the field position that you normally would get from him, that's more my concern if I'm the Saskatchewan Rough Riders. But I think Ryan Dinwiddie had every right to call out his players for those penalties. I get frustrated with the Toronto Maple Leafs, how Mitch Marner will take a shift off and no one criticizes. Or at Edmonton, how no one calls out Connor McDavid for putting up 1 goal in the Stanley Cup Finals, no points in Game 6. Yeah. Or just lackluster performances from your top players. I like it that the Argos coach bluntly said, like, we need the defense and special teams has to be better. You can't allow 39 points and say, oh, well, no, that's unacceptable. That's the unacceptable part. If you don't take all the stupid penalties and your defense just gets a couple more stops, that kicking decision is completely irrelevant. Well, that's my 2 cents.
I did have a question, though. You did mention that. Now, you said that on the final play, they had 1 less player. Like, how did that, was that a special team just mishap? Like they just didn't count properly, or
that's a special team mishap?
How does that happen? Like, come on.
It's happened at a worse time. The Rough Riders literally lost a Grey Cup by putting 1 too many players on the field for a field goal block.
Yeah, the 13th man. Yeah,
they put out 13 guys instead of 12. Montreal missed the field goal. Penalty was accepted. They went out 5 yards closer and nailed it, and that's how they lost a Grey Cup. The Argos will learn from this. This is a winning culture. I'm not giving up on this team yet. I like Ryan Dinwiddie's passion. I'm actually hoping these comments will wake the team up defensively and special teams.
Chad Kelly expected back anytime soon, like a week?
Either this week against Ottawa or next week against Hamilton. I really hope.
How concerned are you this weekend? How concerned are you? I see you got the Red Blacks going up the list. Now your Argos go into Ottawa, which we know what they lost once last year.
Ottawa was very good at home last year, but they've already lost one game at home this year. I honestly think Toronto. I feel that's a winnable game for Toronto still. Good chance Drew Brown won't be playing. So if you have Dustin Crum and they're not calling for rain, the Argos offense should be able to go in there and move the ball and force Dustin Crum to try to put the ball in the air, which is something he did not have to do against Calgary. But I would like to move on now to the Elks versus the Alouettes. And this is a game here that it's funny enough. I was saying at one point during this game, why aren't they putting Cody Fajardo in? Why aren't they putting Cody Fajardo in? Trey Ford is really struggling. Well, then Trey Ford must have heard my comments and got put off with me, and he went on completely balled out in the second half of the third quarter and the fourth. The Edmonton Elks, I think they finally started to find their stride. They were finding a way to contain Montreal's game, although Davis Alexander did leave with an injury. A non-contact hamstring, it looked like. So keep your eye on that if he starts next in week 4, or if it's McLeod Buffalo-Thompson, which, I mean, is arguably a starting quarterback in his own right. But I thought the Edmonton Elks did a lot of things really well in this game. Like, I think the Elks can definitely build. I mean, again, the defense can't give up 38 points and expect to win. But I don't think Montreal's defense is very happy. They let Edmonton put up 28 points in a game that should have been over realistically by the time the second half started. Like, you were up 24-6 going into the second. Never mind that. You were up 28-6 going into the fourth quarter, and you let Edmonton outscore you 22-10 in the fourth quarter and made this a game. Actually, talk about Lane went on a rant. It's time for a Jacob Moore self-proclaimed.
Oh, here we go.
And what the hell was Mark Kelm doing not going for a 2-point convert when you were down 16?
Oh, why? Yeah.
You go for that 2-point convert, then at that point you would have been, when they got a touchdown, you go for the 2-point convert to make it a 2-score game. Instead, they went for a 1-point convert, which of course they got. But then again, they needed all these extra points, and then they did an onside kick in the middle of the game after they didn't go for a 2-point convert with over 10 minutes left in the fourth, which it was one of the few times Montreal got any offense going in that half. I just don't understand. Mark Kelm basically threw this game away with some really, really, really bad coaching decisions. And also, too, as a defensive coordinator, I don't know why they weren't blitzing Davis Alexander more. If you give him time in the pocket on a 3-man rush, he will maneuver the pocket and beat you with his arm strength. He went 20 for 24, 254, and 3 touchdowns. Like, what are you doing? You got to be more aggressive defensively against this kid. At the end of the day, yes, he's 7-0 as a starter, but he's a kid. Blitz the hell out of him. This was a winnable game for the Elks. This was legitimately a winnable game, especially considering you outscored them 22-10 in the fourth. You get those 2-point converts, and then you get the ball back. And in the fourth quarter, too, you're down 10 with 2 minutes left. You get the ball back and you punt? What are you doing? Go for it. What's the big deal if I lose by 10 or 17? Like, seriously, who cares? Go for it. I don't understand. And you might say, why am I so pissed off at the Elks but not the Argos? The Elks have been terrible the last 4 years? Ever since they changed the name to Elks, funny enough, they have not been good. This was a very winnable game against a team that you should have lost to, and you kind of just gave up in a scenario that was no need to give up. Trey Ford finished 27 for 36, 308 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. The pick I did not like. Everything else from Trey Ford, this was the Trey Ford you expect to see. 3 runs for 31 yards and used his legs in the pocket a lot to make explosive plays. But I was very, very frustrated with some of the coaching decisions by the Elks. I think this was a winnable game that they let away.
Do you feel the GM's comment at the beginning of the year is still affecting sort of the team chemistry?
No, I don't. I think they're over it by now. At the end of the day, I don't think a GM's comments are that important to players. I really think it's a locker room with their top guys and their culture, making sure that the culture is right. And I think Edmonton took some big strides in this game. They're facing the Winnipeg Blue Bombers coming up, which is another very, very, very tough opponent. But you pushed Montreal a lot harder than you thought, made a huge comeback. Remember, this game was 28-6 and ended 38-28. So if you can take that, some people would call it garbage time, but even Montreal's Code Northorpe said straight up, we weren't playing garbage time defense. We were still pushing, and we started to really have a hard time containing Trey Ford, and we got to watch the film. This is why you're giving Trey Ford a chance to be a starter, because he can do things that no one else in the league can do. I understand, sure, Cody Fajardo, you will have a more complete game from him. There's no denying it right now. But Trey Ford, if you give him time, could become the best quarterback in the CFL.
But how much time are you going to give him? It's only been, his third or fourth year?
But this is his first year as the starter from the start. You give him at least 3 games. You got to at least give him one more game against Winnipeg and see how he does.
Yeah, but is it really his team? He got Cody Fajardo on the bench?
Yes, it is. Cody Fajardo's even said it's Trey's team. It's not mine.
I know everyone's saying that. But what I mean is...
They haven't even looked at Fajardo in any of these games. This is Trey Ford's team right now. And it is for at least one more week.
It could. The foot's still there, psychologically.
Not really. Like, Cody Fajardo came in here knowing he's a backup quarterback.
Okay.
Like, Lane, you've been a big believer in Trey Ford. Even though Edmonton hasn't won a game yet, do you kind of see what I'm saying, that I think Trey Ford's taken some big steps?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, still very young in his CFL career. I still believe in this kid. I think he's still very extremely talented. He's still trying to find his way on a team that's I think it's still kind of young. I think they're all trying to find their way a little bit here. I think Cody Fajardo can really help mentor him, and I think you're starting to see it. He has his good moments, but Trey Ford has these moments where he just goes off and explodes on a big run or a big pass. I still think this kid, there's something that hasn't been unlocked yet. I still think there's he hasn't reached his ceiling yet. I think he's still trying to get there. But once he does, I think he could be a really top-notch quarterback.
I agree with you. I think there's something special about this kid. He can do things that no one else can do in this league. Right. But I think the Elks do feel like they let this game get away. And I think they let this game away more by coaching errors and anything. And the defense needs to be better. I'm very disappointed with the Elks' defensive line so far to start the year. Jake Serezna and Robbie Smith are 2 of the highest paid defensive linemen in the league. And actually, funny enough, Smith, Flo, and Serezna, who all left Toronto, none of them are putting up comparable years to what they did last year in Toronto so far through the first 3 weeks.
That's true. Now, I do have a question for J-Mo here, as we've been talking about. It wasn't just the Argos. There was a lot of games. There was a lot of penalties. And I noticed when I was at the Argo game, they were calling a lot of 15-yard penalties. I think that's why the numbers grew as astronomical as they did. So my question, Jacob, is when we were doing the CFL preseason show, we were talking about the new rules and the new official rules of the CFL, how roughing a passer is 15 yards and different things, contact with the passer. There was a few plays with the Argos where we got a 15-yard penalty. I was like, okay, he kind of love tapped in the Garbuckle. So do you think the new rules are kind of hurting the flow of the game, Jacob, as many penalties? So you think the penalties have nothing to do with the new rules, and I'm just doing my thing over in the corner here?
I personally feel that the penalties are penalties. The Argos took a lot of stupid penalties, and so did the Rough Riders. I think a lot of teams have actually really taken just boneheaded penalties.
Interesting.
Right? And I actually think the new rules are good for the league because they're protecting players. And I actually am not seeing a lot of penalties that I'm watching, and I'm like, come on, that's not really a flag. It is. They're flags. The Toronto Argos took a lot of stupid penalties. There is no denying that. And if you want to defend that, then I think maybe you just have Argo blinders on.
Yeah. No, I'm not defending him. That's asking a question.
That's my 2 cents, at least. I personally think we saw way too many star quarterbacks get injured last year and I know we're still seeing it, but we saw a lot of them get injured on dirty plays. Jeremiah Masoli's career, we probably lost 3 years of good football from Jeremiah Masoli due to dirty plays. Funny enough, the Rough Riders were in heat again from a dirty block that they threw on the Argos, chopping at the knees, which has been a lot of controversy around that one too. That one was a 15-yard penalty, which some people think that should be more than a 15-yard penalty. So watch for potential suspensions coming up.
What could it be, a suspension?
Do we start seeing 30-yard penalties like double minors the way we do in hockey? Do we start seeing that in football?
Crazy.
So are 4-minute high sticking penalties. right? We still see it.
True.
So I don't know. It'll just be interesting.
That's crazy. It's like about flipping the field. You could flip the field with one penalty.
You do that now, though.
I guess so, yeah.
But I don't know. I just think it's going to be interesting to see. I think we have a lot of really good football coming up here. And I think the Elks, just like the Argos, as much as their mistakes I was very put off about, I think they can build off this. I think there was a lot of things that they did right in this game that they can build. Do you boys all agree with me on that?
Yeah.
100%. I think this is one of the games you're going to look back and be like, ha, this is the moment where it all changed. Especially with Dinwiddie's comments, why I give him so much respect for calling it out how he saw it. And I wish more teams like Maple Leafs were more honest like that.
Well, I wish more teams were like that in general, especially after a loss. But I'm curious here, how concerned are any of you guys about Montreal's defense allowing basically 22 points in a quarter and a half? That's concerning, I think, if you're Montreal, because you're built on your defense. Wouldn't you agree, Lane?
Oh, for sure. Especially when you're built on a defensive structure, 22 points that's a lot.
Yeah, it is a lot.
It really is.
I wouldn't be happy with that if I was the Tiger Cats. I'd be like, come on, like, especially if you're known for your defense, it's like 3 touchdowns in 1 quarter. Like, it's unacceptable.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like it's pretty crazy. Like, what are you faking here, people? Like, it's just nuts.
Well, and I'm more of the fact too is you're built around your defense. You're not built around your offense if you're Montreal. Like Winnipeg struggled with their offense, but I feel they're more built around their defense. Now, I still think it's a problem with the way Zach Claros is playing. But at the end of the day, it's one game. They still found a way to win. Montreal still found a way to win in this one, but I am a little concerned when it comes down to the defense of this squad here, because I don't think they looked very good in this one. And Montreal, you know what? Just because they're 3-0 now doesn't mean they have the East locked up, obviously. You lose to the Hamilton Tiger Cats this week, and all of a sudden you're 3-1. Let's say the Red Blacks beat Toronto and they're 2-2. All of a sudden the East is getting a lot tighter, right? So things can flip very quick in football when there's only one game a week.
That's right.
Definitely.
But I do want to move on to our NHL list of free agency. Now, we're going to do things a little bit different here for NHL free agency. And as you know, the NHL free agency doesn't start until July 1st. But I would like to change it. Well, obviously, I'd love to change it where it started tomorrow, just so I can talk about it all day. Yeah. But we are going to do this where instead of giving us our top list right away, we instead go over our top 5 players. Okay. So our top 5 players, this is my list, by the way, and we'll see if you guys agree or disagree. The best player on the market currently is Mitch Marner, who is expected to get anywhere of a salary of $11 million to $14 million on a short-term deal is what he's looking for. Here's where my list changes a little bit different than a lot of the other ones. My second best player available, in my opinion, is Nikolai Ehlers. I think Nikolai Ehlers is a guy on the right team, could be an 80 to 100 point player. He's going to be looking in that $7 to $9 million range, and he's a
value. What's the number you're getting?
I think it's an awesome value for the way you're getting him. And I'm seeing a lot of people I've seen people put John Tavares ahead of him. I've seen people put Sam Bennett, Brad Marchand ahead of them. For me, Nikolai Ehlers is the second best player available. And I'm going to say out of the top 5, probably your best bang for your buck. You're getting a guy I think has the potential to still have a ceiling to grow. He's physical, he's gritty, playoff experience, and he's a guy that is going to make a difference on your team. My third one now, I go Sam Bennett. Bennett's just coming off a Conn Smythe performance in the NHL playoffs. However, this is where the expected salary for me is very jumbled. Most of them I'm giving kind of a $2 million-ish window, and I think he get anywhere from $4.5 million to $8 million. It really depends if he stays in Florida or if he goes somewhere else. However, he did say in the parade, now he was drunk as a skunk, I'm not effing leaving 8 more years. So it sounds like Sam Bennett wants to stay. doesn't mean he is going to stay necessarily, because it depends. He might want to stay. Evan Bouchard wants to stay in Edmonton, but it's rumored he wants $10 million a year. Will Edmonton
That's
give it to him?
crazy.
Right? I don't even have Evan Bouchard in my top 5 players available, by the way. Number 4, Brad Marchand. Brad Marchand, with the playoffs he had, it was electric. He was a real difference maker for the Florida Panthers, and I think one of the biggest reasons why they won the Stanley Cup. Last but certainly not least, to round out the top 5, Aaron Ekblad, which, by the way, Brad Marchand, I have anywhere from $4.5 million to $8 million for expected salary. It really depends if he stays to Florida or goes to open market.
Kind of all these guys, to be honest.
Last but not least, Aaron Ekblad. I think Aaron Ekblad is the best defenseman on the market, not Evan Bouchard. I think Aaron Ekblad is a guy that you bring to your defense. Any defensive core in the league gets better, including Toronto's, because I've seen people say Toronto shouldn't change defensive core. If you get Aaron Ekblad, you make a change.
See, call me crazy. I do
You're crazy.
agree with number 1. I do agree with the players you picked. I just don't agree with the order. Like, I think number 1 is definitely Mitch Marner, even though we all dislike him, you know. I think number 2 is actually Aaron Ekblad, because he's a defensive defenseman. And it's so hard to get a defensive defenseman nowadays in the league that still has a shot that can still pass the puck up the ice, which he can do. He's also a former number 1 draft pick, which, you know, shows you how much of a franchise player he is. He has tons of leadership skills, and he was the captain of the Barrie Colts, and he wasn't captain in Florida. A lot of leadership skills in Florida, and he's won back-to-back Stanley Cups. I would almost argue Aaron Ekblad's more valuable than Mitch Marner. Like, depending on the team, like, he is literally missing piece. You look at Florida, who's been in Stanley Cup 3 years in a row. They took the draft and got Aaron Ekblad, Barkov, and gave Bobrovsky $10 million. And that's how they build that team. One of those pieces are now available. Sign them.
I'm not totally disagreeing with you, but I don't think you can say Aaron Ekblad is the best player available. I think he's up there, but he's not.
He's not the best player. I'd say most valuable.
I wouldn't even say he's most valuable. He's a good player.
And I think if you could get him, I would like, you know, $8 million is probably a very good value too.
Like I said, I personally have him in the $7 to $10 million range. I think that's what he'll get. Especially, again, I think if he stays in Florida, it'll be more like 7. If he moves on away from Florida, it will more be like 10. But is there anyone on my list here? Are there any salaries that you think I'm out to lunch on?
No. I think it's pretty pulp. I mean, I don't think Brad Marchand at 4.5. I think it's going to be way higher. But again, we'll see.
If he stays
right?
in
Like
Florida, though, if he stays in Florida, he might have to be
the odd man out, in my opinion.
I still think the odd man out in Florida, unfortunately, is going to be Aaron Ekblad.
No, because he wants to stay more.
I feel like Marcus might hit 7.
8, no, more. Leafs will give him 9.5 easily. Like, I look at it, in my opinion, boys, like, if you ask me where you're going, like, I'm thinking Marner going to, like, Vegas, maybe, like, I'm thinking Vegas or LA, to be honest, on that, like, 3-year, like,
Vegas.
I do. They like to grab the big fish. They like to throw their players around like it means nothing.
Yeah, but
they like short-term deals so they can get rid of them fast. Like, Vegas is a kind of market where I feel like they don't really care about the players and who they're getting. They just like to get the big. They like to catch the big fish, have them for 2 or 3 years, and throw them back in the ocean. So I could definitely see that. You know, I'm thinking Bennett and Ekblad have been the most vocal so far about wanting to stay. So I don't really see a scenario in which they would move, to be brutally honest, because it just seems like no matter what they say, who's asking them, it says they've been the most vocal so far of being like, oh, we're coming back. We're running this back. Don't see them leaving.
That's true. Yeah.
Ehlers, I could see him landing in the Leafs if he's willing to stay in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
I hope so. I'm hoping he'd like to stay in Canada. He'd be a player I'm looking at the Toronto Maple Leafs to maybe bring in. And then I think Brad Marchand, I mean, unless unless the Leafs won't do it. I think the Leafs throw whatever they want him for 3 years. I don't care if it's a Patrick
especially
Marleau deal.
Considering, I don't know if you boys have heard this or not, but it looks like John Tavares is further away from signing a deal than anyone originally thought. The Leafs offered him around that $4 million range. Apparently, it looks like Tavares wants in that 7 to 8, which I don't think he's worth in Toronto. I don't even know if Tavares is worth $8 million open market after Matt Duchene just signed for $4.5.
Well, that's the price.
And if you're John Tavares, I think he's worth $6 million max open market to Toronto, maybe 7. To Toronto, he's worth 5. I think you pay him any more than 5, you overpaid him for what he does on the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Yeah,
he's a great, gets a lot of points, but let's be honest, he's kind of slowed down, right? Like, and this is the thing, everyone. So I talked to my friend about this, and he thought I was out to lunch saying, well, everyone's overplaying this age thing. He did get, this many goals and this many points. I'm like, yeah, but Crosby still can skate.
Yeah.
Some of these players can skate. John Tavares can't skate.
That is very true. John Tavares, especially when you watch him with William Nylander, he can't skate at all.
He's
but
slow.
Just so everyone is aware, you might be thinking, Jacob, there's more than 5 players available in free agency. On our next episode, we'll go over our next 5, which will be the top 10. So make sure you're locked in for that. Chazzy, though, for your top 5, do you see anyone you think you could see Montreal taking a run at?
Oh, out of your top 5 there?
Yeah.
I think half of them may not even hit the market. But
So you think Florida's going to keep Bennett, Marchand, and Ekblad with their cap restrictions?
No, I think they're going to keep the 2. They'll keep Marchand and Bennett.
So that would still leave Marner, Ehlers, and Ekblad.
Yeah, I'm surprised you don't have your Nyes on there unless you're already thinking. I guess he's already going to. He's getting.
So I'm going to do another one that will be the top restricted free agents.
Oh, restricted. Okay.
These are the top unrestricted. I should have made that clear. I am very sorry, Jazzy. I'm so sorry.
But you wouldn't put Brock up there?
He was one I debated on, but no, Brock Besser I don't think is better than any of these 5 players available. No,
he's not.
Maybe watch out for him on the top 10. Wink, wink, nod, nod. I can't.
He's a great player, bro.
I cannot wink.
Like
I can blink.
40 goal scorer.
But we will talk more about him on our Thursday episode of Streakers On Podcast, brought to you by Streakers Gaming, not Home Depot. But I want to move on to the Florida Panthers, and I know you've talked about the culture in Florida Panthers. I think this team might be getting a little too cocky. And we saw it with Matthew Tkachuk, drunk as a skunk, wearing a championship belt that he got made, going, Connor McDavid, oh! Also, why is Brady Tkachuk on stage? You've done absolutely nothing. You haven't even won a round yet. But, like, seriously. Okay, Dan, I'm sorry. If I ever win $100 million, you're probably not going to be on the stage drunk with me yelling about Connor McDavid. But
none taken.
I look at this too, and I saw the
probably
funniest.
On the stage yelling about the Leafs, though.
I saw the funniest comment though about this when one of our viewers sent it to me, saying, "Yeah, this is the same guy who was in tears when Connor McDavid sent you home at the Four Nations. Calm down, buddy."
Ooh.
So I think this is gonna. I'm curious what you guys think. I think this is gonna add a real fire under Connor McDavid's butt to just play that much better. I think Connor McDavid is not going to like that comment whatsoever.
I don't think
the Oilers are going to like that comment whatsoever. And I think if you're Florida, you need to calm down a little bit. Matthew Tkachuk's also going on, we're a dynasty. No, you're not. You've won 2 out of 3. 2 out of 3 ain't bad, as they like to say. Win 3 straight, win 3 and 5, something along those lines, then sure. We've had this conversation a lot. You're not a dynasty when you win 2. You're not a dynasty when you win 1. You're not a dynasty when you made it to the Stanley Cup Finals 3 years in a row. Who cares about making it? We care about winning. That's like saying the Edmonton Oilers are 1 Stanley Cup Finals appearance away from a dynasty. No, they're not. I've made the same argument about the Buffalo Bills when they went to the Super Bowl 5 years in a row. They're not a dynasty. They didn't win. I don't see how you can be a dynasty of failure. And in my opinion, it's a failure when you get to the Cup Finals and you don't win twice in a row. So they're not a dynasty. And if you're Florida, okay, so you can beat the Edmonton Oilers. I would like to see you beat someone else. It's kind of like the Winnipeg Blue Bombers when they just kept beating Hamilton, and then as soon as they had to play Toronto or Montreal, they couldn't get it done, right? So it's interesting here, but I thought Matthew Tkachuk was just being an ass. We can say ass on the podcast, by the way. I just thought he was being an ass. What do you guys think?
Being a donkey.
But not the donkey from Shrek. I love the donkey from Shrek.
I don't read too much into it. haven't slept since they won. They've been drinking champagne 24/7. I don't think he meant this in a crude way.
Oh, yes, he did. He's Matthew Tkachuk.
Jacob, I don't think they've stopped drinking since they've won, and I don't think they've slept.
But again,
I don't think that is mentally competent at this point.
You're supposed to be a role model when you're paid as a professional athlete. And I don't think this is a great way to be a role model, rocking around drunk on stages, shirtless, just chirping other people who are 100 times better than you are.
No, but it's not unique. If you look at who wins the cup, like the teams are they're having a good time.
Yeah, but I've never fully agreed.
I've seen Vegas when Vegas won it, they did the same thing.
Yeah,
taking the microphone away from whoever's talking too much.
Jacob, I think you're reading too much into this. I think this is going to go on for a week. Maybe help make a public apology or something.
No, he won't.
Well, I agree. I agree with Jacob on this one. I think I think Matthew Tkachuk didn't know he was being filmed. I think someone snuck in with a cell phone. And I think Matthew Tkachuk's going to regret what he said, because I think Florida could win the Stanley Cup without Matthew Tkachuk. I really do. I don't think he had that one good game in the finals. I had a couple good games in the playoffs, and he had a whole injury excuse, blah, blah, blah. But he's not the franchise, in my opinion, he's not a franchise player on Florida.
Yeah, he is.
Well, for him to go out there and smack, I mean, let's say back in his prime, Ovechkin goes out there and slams McDavid. Well, Ovechkin
would never slam Sidney Crosby like that.
That's very true.
Even when Ovechkin was drunk out of his mind, they asked him about Sidney Crosby, and he was like, Sidney Crosby's one of the greatest players I've ever seen. Yeah, and he was drunk he was
maybe Russians are just better with their liquor. I don't know.
Well, I mean, that too.
Well, but, yeah, he drinks liquor when he wants to drink water.
Now, Dan, to kind of counter your point on Matthew Tkachuk, he was tied for the team lead in points this playoffs with 23 points in 23 games.
Yeah, like McDavid didn't tie anyone, he led the team.
Dan, you know I love you.
Nothing.
Dan, you know I love you, but I got to disagree with you saying Matthew Tkachuk isn't a franchise player. Like, I feel like that's what started this whole movement with the Florida Panthers.
I won't say it started the whole movement. I think it was kind of the final piece. What started the whole movement was actually Aaron Ekblad and then Sasha Barkov. Those were the two first blocks.
But
then it was getting
help.
I wouldn't even say it was getting Tkachuk next. I actually think it was getting Sergei Bobrovsky. I think Bobrovsky was, I've said it once and I'll say it again. This Florida Panthers team goes as far as Sergei Bobrovsky takes them.
100%.
Right, but they did get Matthew Tkachuk.
And then they got Matthew Tkachuk. I think this team's a very good team without Matthew Tkachuk still. I don't know if they're winning the Stanley Cups that they're winning and getting to the finals that they do. Same with Connor Verhaeghe. Right? And the difference is, too, you kind of look at the way the Florida Panthers are built. And again, I don't like the comments on Matthew Tkachuk at all. And you guys can think I'm reading in too much into it. That's fine. But I think at the end of the day, it shows a disrespect to your opponent. You normally don't call out your opponent. I didn't like it when Nikita Kucherov did it to Montreal. I don't like it where Matthew Tkachuk is doing it to Edmonton. I'm just not a fan of it. But when you look at the way Florida Panthers are built, Sam Reinhart, 23 points. Matthew Tkachuk, 23 points. Carter Verhaeghe, 23 points. Sam Bennett, 22 points, 15 goals. Sasha Barkov, 22 points. Brad Marchand, 20 points. Listerine, 19 points. Lindell, 18 points. Rodriguez, 15 points. Ekblad, 13. Schmidt, 12. You have 11 players with at least 10 or more points in the double digits. That's why this team is as good as they are.
Oh, 100%.
But I do think this will be fuel to the fire for the Edmonton Oilers and Connor McDavid. He cannot be happy about being called out like that and being blasted all over social media.
Mr. Moore, what do you think? I want to know what your guys' thoughts on this whole new, and I guess Marner started to. I want Chazzy's opinion because you hear what, I don't know if you heard what McDavid's saying, but I guess everyone's taking Marner's new little speech here about, well, I like this team, but we'll see how the year plays out. And, I really feel like, I want to get started on a Marner rant right now, but man, here we go again with this whole starting a new trend in the NHL. Where were we back in the days with loyalty and players who actually wanted to stay on their team? Now Marner's starting this new trend of this whole, well, I like my team, but we'll see how the year plays out. I'm not really commenting on a contract. Yeah, I might want to see how the year plays out. Now McDavid's doing it too.
My thing on that is it was the same time when teams used to not trade their franchise players, right? You look what the Rangers have done with Jacob Trouba. Yeah, I remember when the Edmonton Oilers traded Ryan Smith. Like, look at when the Leafs traded Wendell Clark back in the day. Like, I think players were more loyal, but then players got fed up with the teams not being loyal to them. And also, too, people are mad at Mitch Marner. He has every right to do what he's doing, and so does Connor McDavid, right? And Connor McDavid, I was more surprised by the comments. I think we'll be good next year. Where we are from there, who knows and who cares? I thought that was odd when he also had an earlier comment saying that, like, I want to be on a team that I think can win cups. Do I think Connor McDavid stays in Edmonton? Absolutely. I think it was very fresh. Still, what happened? Stan Bowman, the GM, said that he wants his deal done yesterday. But what I found more interesting in Edmonton was the GM saying, I like our D, but our forwards and goaltending will change. I think he's going the complete wrong approach of defense versus forwards. I thought the defense besides of Arvidsson was pretty good. I mean, I thought the forwards beside of Arvidsson was pretty good. I think Edmonton's defense is terrible.
I wouldn't say it's terrible.
It sucks. It sucks. You played above expected for a couple rounds, and then you came back to reality against Florida. It's bad.
And you're not giving Bouchard $10 million. I don't know about that one.
Well,
was it as much as
the
players as it was the coaching? Like McDavid said, the stubbornness of not changing your game plan.
But why would you change it? It's got you to the Stanley Cup Finals in the first place.
Even change? But it wasn't working against the Panthers after Game 2.
I don't know.
What can he change? Like, he's not. I don't see. I disagree with that. Some it's like it's okay. McDavid's that. I don't know if it's a shot at them, the GM or the coach. It's like, well, it's like you want him to change. What's he going to change? Put Brett Kulak like first pairing? It's like he's only.
Remember, he likes the defense. That's what I'm saying. Darnell Nurse is the most overpaid defenseman in the entire league. What? Yeah, Brett Kulak, who should be a third pairing guy. You have Matthias Ekholm, who when he's 80% is probably still your best defenseman. You're about to go overpay Evan Bouchard. I think he's worth $6 million. Mm-hmm. As a restricted free agent, you need to negotiate that. Be like, look, take a bridge deal at $6 million and win a cup. Then we'll overpay you. Hmm. Usually, restricted free agents don't make as much money as unrestricted. Or let someone offer sheet them, get 2 or 3 first round draft picks, and go sign Aaron Ekblad. I don't understand if players want to leave. Okay, the door's over there. Just let them go. Because you can always bring in other studs. There's always good players available, whether it's via trade or via free agency. I just find it weird that Edmonton feels that it's the forward group that needs to change. So that means I'm assuming Connor Brown and Jeff Skinner are both gone. Both your goalies are under contract. So are you trading Stuart Skinner and Calvin Pickard?
Yeah, I guess so. I wouldn't get rid of Connor Brown. I know he died off a little bit in the Stanley Cup Finals with terms of point wise, but I thought Connor Brown played incredible. I also saw a thing about Corey Perry not being re-signed in Edmonton. That's bonkers to me too. I've heard rumors of Corey Perry going Maple Leaf land. If Edmonton's dumb enough not to bring Corey Perry, please bring him to Toronto.
What I just don't get for Edmonton is I don't think your bottom 6 forwards were the problem. I think
I thought they got to the cup just because of them.
I think it was more McDavid and Draisaitl underperforming. He just doesn't have enough balls to call them out. Which again, it brings me back to my point on Ryan Dinwiddie being willing to call out his team.
Right.
Like it's kind of like with the Leafs with the core 4. So many years they just swapped out bottom 6 forwards and it isn't working. It's not working for Edmonton either because I would say you have your core 4 with Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, and Darnell Nurse. Because Darnell Nurse, you're paying Darnell Nurse $9.5 million.
That's the hiccup,
right? I personally think, and they say don't change the defense. I'm moving on from Darnell Nurse. I don't care what I got to do. I don't care if I have to take a bad contract to get him gone.
Yeah.
You need to get rid of him because he's too much money for what he's playing. He's a third pairing defense. He was a third pairing defenseman for most of the playoffs for Edmonton.
Yeah.
There's also rumors that they're very interested in bringing back Klingberg. I don't fully understand why. Yeah, Lane, it was the exact same reaction I had. I don't know why you want a defenseman who can't defend. I think To be honest, I'm going to say this. I think if Edmonton, I'm pretty sure it was confirmed about Trent Frederick getting that deal.
Yeah.
And
that contract makes no sense.
You've overpaid Trent Frederick. You might be overpaying Evan Bouchard. You're going to keep Darnell Nurse. Where's the money to get better forwards and better goaltending?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if this is true, but I did hear something about, because they do have 2 years with Bouchard, and the cap is going up like another. I think it's going up like another $6 million the following year.
Mm-hmm.
What I've heard they thought they might do is they might give him another year at his current contract, and give him a promise like, okay, if you play for us one more year at this crappy contract, because you're under contract anyways, on the next one when the cap goes up even more, we'll give you that $10 million deal because we'll have more. The percentage of the cap won't be as bad, so we can get you over that 10 million instead of getting you now, where we can bring in more people to play. I don't know if that's true. It's just a rumor I'd heard on the internet that Bouchard might just sign a 1-year deal.
I could see them making Bouchard try to get a 1-year deal to win. I just mean, though, the cap space still isn't there.
Well, that's why I was saying a couple episodes ago about the Leafs to do with Matthew Knives, right? I think that's kind of the future. Instead of signing these 8-9 year contracts, I think we're going to be more short term. You look at Mitch Marner saying he wants a short term contract. Now, the hiccup of that is these short term contracts could easily blow up on the players too. What happens if you look at Connor Brown?
Change that.
Pardon me?
I said, the players are going to get away with this for now. Guarantee the CBA rolls around. Once the owners once we get the new owner votership, they're going to get rid of this. They're going to get rid of these short-term players. Think they're going to keep taking them to the bank. I guarantee you, the players forget they don't run the league. The GMs do. They're taking advantage of the system right now. But I guarantee you 100%, the next time the CBA rolls around, these owners and GMs are going to do something about these players, thinking, "Oh, I'll just take 3 years and get $6 million of raises every time." I think there's going to. I'm making a prediction now. That's going to be ending very shortly.
I don't see how you can tell players you have to sign 8-year deals, though.
Well, I don't know, but I do see what minimum 5 years. Say.
I don't know, but that could backfire on the owners just as on the GMs just as much, right?
But you forget about controllable assets, Jacob. Here's the thing: the players think that here's what's happening right now. You got Marner, who's leading this charge that we run the league. They forget they don't run anything.
Do, though. No, but they do though. It's not the owners that are on the ice. No one pays to watch the GM sip his coffee. They're all paying to watch. They don't
pay the checks.
But Lane, if all these good players just say, okay, if you're not going to pay me, goodbye, I'm just going to go to the KHL where I can make even more money. Why would they stay? We're just going to lose too much top end talent. And that is like saying, if let's say I want to hire you as an employee, you have to sign a 10-year contract to work for $13 an hour. No one is in their right mind is going to sign that. Why would a player in the NHL sign that deal if they know it's not best for them? Because it could backfire. Mitch Marner could sign a 1-year deal, and he could absolutely suck. He could get injured game 2 of the season, and then the next contract could go down $4 or $5 million. So it could backfire either way. The rule that will change in the CBA, from what I'm hearing, is the rolling cap is going to stick in the playoffs, meaning teams have to be under the salary cap, which you called a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, 100%.
That'd be amazing. Cool. That solves, in my opinion, that solves a lot of issues. Like, you know what? Sign whoever you want, pay whatever you want. Sign Million and Marner to $16 million. I don't care what you do with your money. Give whoever you want, but when you come on the ice, you better be $96 million under the cap.
Yeah,
I agree.
But I don't know. I just worry that I feel like these GMs are not going to like these players just saying, "Well, in 3 years I'm bouncing. In 3 years I'm bouncing," because I feel like the GMs are going to want more control of their rosters. You got to imagine these are millions of dollars they're playing up. They need to sell. At the end of the day, they need to put competitive teams on the ice. And if every player has this mentality of, "Oh, I'm just going to play 3 years, get my $14 million, and then go somewhere else and get another $12 million."
Yeah, but we already see it in the CFL all the time, though.
Like, I see a point, Lane.
I don't see how owners can control where players want to play for a period of time.
I see a point. I just don't know if I agree. Like, if I'm a GM, I don't care about long term. I care about winning. I care about winning my cup now, because for all I know, if I'm a GM and I build this team, we'll be good in 17 years, but I'm going to get fired as a GM.
No, but here's
People want to win now.
Okay,
Look
but
at the Ricky Pietro contract.
That's exactly my point.
But Dan, here's the part. I don't think maybe I'm not explaining my point. I'm looking at the way Florida has won, right? What did Florida do? They got good value contracts for many years, right? They had so many guys. They picked up guys who had like 5 or 6 year contracts on a good deal. What I'm saying is I think GMs are going to be scared of is this idea that like because the cap's going up so much that these star players are going to say, well, Marner's going to say, well, I want $15 million for 3 years, and then in 3 years he's gonna say, well, now I want $18 million because it went up, and then in 3 years I'm gonna want $22 million because it went up.
And then walk.
But that's a part. Like every 3 years, you're basically resetting. You can't plan your franchise around.
You can though because you find guys that care about winning more than money. And that's what you
have.
I hope so.
Austin Matthews signed a 4-year deal, right? When he signed his contract because he was hoping he can get paid more money. Because unfortunately, and maybe this is true, maybe it's not, but when they do contracts like that, it makes you believe the players care about the money more than the cups, which is fine. That's their prerogative. But it's up to the teams to say, look, you can do this and sign $13 million. And maybe teams are happier to get that too because you're getting them cheaper for that couple of years when you're in your window. Right? The long-term contracts is now more going to be like the secondary players, not your bottom 6, but maybe your second to third line.
Right.
Are going to be guys that want longer-term deals because like that's just the way it works. I think we're going to see more and more. And also, too, the league loves it when free agency is as crazy as it is.
Oh, so 100%.
The owners, they make all this money. Owners want different players half the time because then they can sell new jerseys. They can make all this extra revenue. There's all the revenue that comes in. At the end of the day, the players will never accept a CBA saying they can't sign short-term deals. That would never happen.
It gives us something to talk about.
And the NHL doesn't want another lockout because the last lockout almost killed the league.
It did, yeah.
It won't. Elaine, I understand your point. I even get where the owners may be frustrated at times, but that's just the nature of the business.
I actually welcome it. Like, if I was a GM, I would sign everyone 1-year deals and say, here's your money, prove it.
I'd sign more players to short-term deals than they do. Maybe not every player, but more.
Look at CFL. CFL is prime example. If they fall apart, just let them walk. Who cares? Right? Like, you're not tied to them. They're not tied to you. And, and that way, too, you're getting real value based on performance of the previous year.
The only issue I see is then, I do think I'm being a bit over dramatic. I get it. I'm a passionate guy, so I know I'm an over dramatic person. But my problem then becomes, well, then how do you plan with your draft picks? Because, you got Florida here who tries to be aggressive, and if they only think they can only get 2 years, like how do you know if you should trade your draft pick, keep your draft pick? Because, these draft picks sometimes don't hit for 5, 6, depending on
you roll the dice.
You
roll the dice.
It's hard.
And it is hard. Look at Neil Yakupov in Edmonton. This is why these GMs get paid 6-7 figures to do their job, to basically write things down on a piece of paper, right, and make phone calls because they have to make these tough decisions. It's the way it goes. Maybe the draft too. I think the draft will change where you're looking for guys to not make an impact right now. You're looking at guys who you think are going to be top players in 2 to 3 years, not tomorrow. I think Connor Bedard, to be blunt, could have really done a lot of good of playing maybe in the CHL for another year to continue to develop his game of players that can actually play. Or maybe the AHL needs to change it where 18-year-olds.
I was just going to say that, yeah.
Right? We're seeing it right now, and maybe that'll change with the way the NCAA window's open, where you're not going to see 18-year-olds coming into the NHL as often. I think that is actually a good thing. And that's how teams will be able to get away with signing these players to 3-year deals. Look at Matthew Nice, for example, or Kale Kaprizov. Those are 2 older guys coming in as rookies who made instant impacts to your roster. That will be the future with the way the NCAA is built in. And Chazzy, I know you and I have talked about this quite a bit. You're so excited for the way the NCAA is coming in for developing younger players, aren't you?
Oh, yeah. I think it just widens the spectrum and, I don't know, just more competitive hockey, and you get the best of the best. And it'll be interesting to see how it all rolls out. And how it all transpires and everything. But exciting time.
But I do want to move on to the Toronto Blue Jays, and we won't spend too much time talking about this White Sox series because there's really not much to talk about except that I was right. The Blue Jays have hit a real slump, which is what they seem to do every time they get on a roll.
Yep.
Losing this series to the White Sox, you may look back on this if you missed the playoffs by 2 games and look how you only won 1 game against the White Sox.
Yeah.
And you might look at this and be like, look, it was this run in June that was our opportunity, and we didn't do it.
Like,
I agree.
Like, sure, game 2 was great, but game 1 and 3 were terrible in this series, right? Like, game 3, you had a lead going into the 8th, and you just blew it. Game 1, you didn't even show up. Bichette, one of his swings, he literally fell over. Like, it's just not acceptable.
Like, you got
game
swept.
2, sure, you played great. That's awesome. You didn't get swept. Good job. Now you got to sweep the Guardians.
To get back on track, yeah, you're like
get back on track. You have to
sweep
sweep
your last
the Guardians.
9.
Sorry, say that again, Lane.
I said they're 3-6 in their last 9 games,
Which is unacceptable.
Yeah.
Mind you, too, the New York Yankees are taking advantage of their easy schedule, right? They won 2 out of 3 games against the Orioles. So that's the problem now, right? The Yankees just won 2 out of 3. You lost 2 out of 3. And now you're falling behind again. Plus, the Red Sox and the Rays are starting to get going again, too. The Jays have this opportunity now where the Yankees are playing the Reds, which the Reds are not they're a decent team. Actually, they're actually pretty good at 40-38. So you got to hope that the Yankees only win 1 out of 3 in this. And you might be saying, Jacob, it's only June. And I get that. But the Jays always seem to go on these runs in June and July that cost them their season. And if they do it again, something's got to change.
And don't forget, Bussett's still not under contract, right?
Nope.
So you would think he would want. He had a nice home run the game that we were there on Saturday, but you would think he would want to step it up and get this team over the hump.
So how important, do you guys agree with me, though, that it's critical for them to get a sweep against the Guardians coming up just to kind of get back on track?
Well, yeah, because then you got your division, you got your AL East matchup next with your Red Sox and your Yankees, and that's really where you're gonna really see a seismic change. So I think you at least got to win 2 out of 3 out of the Cleveland Guardians, if not sweep. But if not sweep, I think you'll at least got to take this series to gain some ground, because you're going to have six tough games against the Red Hawks are starting to heat up a little bit, and then you have the Yankees who are finally coming out of their bad slump. You know, those bats are going to heat up once again, and once they do, they're going to be a tough team to stop again. So This is tough to get some before you might get into another slump again. I think it's big to get a big win against the Guardians here.
And that's my big concern, right? I think you got to win this series of Guardians because next is your Red Sox series and then your Yankees. And my God, you better win those series. Yeah. If you don't, June started off so well and could end in complete disaster.
It could.
So I want to get into our Streakers props for this. And of course, make sure you download the Streakers app. It's updated. It's new. It's a great time. But who will win game 1 of this series? The Toronto Blue Jays or the Cleveland Guardians? Chazzy, I'll start with you. You've been too quiet. I want you to speak.
Game 1, I think the Jays will bounce back. You got Scherzer going to start on Wednesday. So I think
that's big.
The Guardians are going to be a tough team to beat, but I think they could. I don't know. You basically had the game today, and Hoffman just coughed up that ground ball. So
that's unusual for Hoffman.
Yeah.
So who are you taking, Dan, in the first game of this series?
I'm agreeing with the Boston CEO. I'm taking the Jays for the first game. I think we're going to bounce back nicely. I think, they're a little bit of a slump, but I think they're better this year. I think they're too good just to blow up in June like previous years. I think we get it done.
I'm going next, and I'm sorry, boys. I disagree completely. I have not seen it after the way that series against the White Sox and what this team has done in the past. It's like betting on the Leafs to win a game 7. It's not going to happen. I think the Jays are going to continue to falter, and we're going to look back at June and be like, this is where the season fell apart. And they're going to lose the first game against the Guardians. Lane, what are your thoughts here? Are you leaning with me or are you leaning towards Dan?
I'm with you, Jacob. I got to be honest. I think they will. I don't think they won't lose this series, but I think they're going to lose game 1. I think you got to win those games against the White Sox. I'm sorry, it's unacceptable. Chaz is laughable. What Chaz is doing, I agree, is very laughable. very funny that you lost to a team that can barely win a game on a normal night, and you had the lead in the game here, and going to the game in the ninth inning, you couldn't win this game. I don't know, man.
And then when your starter's just cruising and you take them out, like I don't know.
Well, that's the thing too. The Jays have I've said this for a while. They have a coaching problem, right? And I really feel that. But I want to get into our props because there ain't no party like a prop party on the Streakers On podcast. And I will give this prop to Mr. Dan. Will Vladdy Guerrero Jr. get 2 hits in his first 3 at bats?
Yes, I think so. Vladdy looked really good. The game we were very he hit two home runs. He's starting to heat up. I guess he's moving to half a billion man. So yeah, he's gonna get it done.
Mr. Lane Dashing Dashco.
Well, that's me.
Will the Guardian score 4 runs in the first 5 innings?
I'm going to say no. I think the starting pitching has been pretty good this year. I'm going to say no.
Mr. Chazzy 6.5. Will the Toronto Blue Jays get at least 8 hits in this game?
No.
You know what, Chazzy? I will agree with you on that one. I think the Jays will only get 5 hits. So you know what, Chazzy? Please change the prop to 5 hits.
5. Okay.
5. Now I can ask you again. Will the Jays get at least 5 hits?
Yes, because I think they're going to win this game.
Send me that rivalry because they will not, and they will get less than 5 hits.
You know what? I'm actually 5 wins out of my last 6 rivalries. So
Whoa, you're on a
taking a
roll.
beef puppy today.
Oh, nice.
Starting to warm up, boys. So
Getting those points.
I'll send you that rivalry.
But you know what, unfortunately, is not warming up our show because we've came to the end. But before we go, Mr. Moore, for your money, I will let you do the mindset today since Lane did it the week before, 2 weeks ago. Then I did the last one. So let's get back to Dan giving us the mindset for his clarity of moments.
No problem. Well, I actually liked when, you guys get a mindset. If Chazzy has one time or whatever, feel free to jump in, boys.
Nope, Chazzy's not allowed.
I would say.
You just kicked at the CEO. You're probably fired now.
Go ahead, Dan.
The island's all about family and community and growth, so the more time in, the better. Now, I was going to say this last week, so it could be a little bit outdated, but I feel like it's so important to talk about that I'm going to put in. And it's kind of, I talk about some crazy ideas in sports a couple of times on the Island podcast. And I think it's a crazy idea because it's new. It hasn't been done yet. But I think it's actually good. I think it'll actually help people. So when we went to the Argos home opener game, everyone wanted their replica Grey Cup ring, 10,000 wings. And, we talk about the overpricing of that. So I'm not going to get into that. But half the gates were closed at BMO Field. So the lineups were insane. We had about the attendance was 18,000 people. Over 18,000, actually. And it was only 3 gates. So, yeah, not all 18,000 came in the beginning. But there was a very long lineup for about, I would say about 90 minutes. And Jacob might think I'm crazy, but I would say it was over 10,000 people in that lineup. As Jacob and I were walking into the gate, there's some very passionate and Argo fans. It's like what Chazzy pointing out, like for us, it's like 3 generation Argo fan deep, and like our mom's been going Argo games for 50 years, right? So there's some very passionate Argo fans, and as age and disability catch up with people, you get Argo fans who are in their 80s and 90s with their walkers still showing up to the game every game, which is incredible. And I'm sure there are ever sporting events and teams that go on like this. And unfortunately, due, I guess, to the heat and to the crowd, or whatever the case may be, one of the passionate fans, I haven't talked to, but I've seen him there over time, had a medical emergency. And it was so hard for the security guards and paramedics to get to him with the barriers and all the people in the lineup. And luckily, people in the lineup were helping him, and hopefully he's okay. But it was such a crazy mess. I'm standing there thinking, well, due to work and life, I've done traveling and stuff quite a bit. And at the airport and the airplane, you can request ahead of time to have extra time to board onto your plane if you're a senior or disability. It doesn't cost any extra money. It's no special perks or nothing. It's just that you can apply ahead of time. Hey, I need extra time to get in my seat and buckle in. So I'm thinking about, why not do we do that for sporting events? Yeah, okay, maybe out of those 10,000 Grey Cup wings, maybe 100 of them would go to a loyal fan or someone with a disability instead of someone waiting in the lineup. But is that really a bad thing? Like, why not? I think we should have an option of having people that require assistance to get into, to cut the lineup and get into the gates, even 15 minutes before everyone else. And that's my crazy idea of sports, and that's my island mindset.
Actually, you know what, Dan? I don't think that's a crazy idea whatsoever. I think, you know what, maybe we do need to make sports more accessible for people. And I do want to add to that, I thought the fans at the game were very good at helping this elderly gentleman when he was having problems. You saw about 5 or 6 of them helping him stand back up. People were waving security, actually clearing way out of the lineup. I've seen it where people have medical problems and people are during a Black Friday say, no, I want my TV $10 off. I'm not moving. So big ups to the fans who actually got out of the way and helped. And Dan, that's not a bad idea, actually. Maybe that's something, maybe you should send it to your season ticket representative wow, he actually did not sneeze loudly. I'm very impressed. He's learning. But thank you very much for watching this episode of the Streakers Island podcast. Looking for more Streakers Island content? Follow us on all the social medias. I'm Jacob Moore, the self-proclaimed sports analyst, joined by Lane, Mother Truckin' Dash and Dashco, Chazzy, 6.5, and Mr. More for your money. Woo! We'll see you back on Thursday.
Bye-bye.